There are many ways to compare humanoid bots with each other and assess who is ahead of whom. But when it comes to which bot is already doing useful work for customers, that list starts to get smaller. Agility Robotics says their Digit is the world's only bipedal robot currently delivering useful work. And today, they dropped giant news that they formed a partnership with the Manhattan Associates, the global leader in supply chain commerce, and that's going to accelerate their adoption to more warehouses around the world. Today, we've got Scott Walter joining us, and he's a two-time robotics company co-founder. Thank you so much for joining me again, Scott.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here and talk about yet another development in the humanoid robot space.
They're coming fast and furious, and this one's is different because Agility, their Digit, they've already been in customers' hands. They're building a factory to build 10,000 of these per year in Portland, Oregon, and now they've made this big partnership. So we're going to explore that further. But before we do that, let's remind people what is Digit, and how they were made and so forth. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, well, they came out of a research program from Oregon State University to develop a bipedal platform known as CASI. And again, I always say that it was literally built from the ground up. So they solved the bipedal walking problem and then tried to figure out what, the rest that they could try to do with it to make something that could do useful work. And the result is what we see here is Digit. And the name of Digit comes from the fact that the type of walking it does is what's called the digigrade. It's basically, it looks like an ostrich, and animals that walk that way, where it looks like the knees are backwards, technically it's the ankles, as that the knees are up very high, gives it a way of being able to walk that's very stable and obviously unique. And we first saw them maybe about a year ago when they were kind of came out of stealth mode. And you could see they were already doing what looked like useful work at a trade fair. And they did it again just a few weeks ago in Atlanta. And they were really the only one that's there. So as far as public demonstrations of a bot doing useful work and doing it continuously, I would have to agree with Peggy's assessment that, yeah, they're the first ones to show it for sure. And we know they've been doing a lot of pilot programs. So I've had my own sort of definition of what useful work is. And one of them is, of course, to be able to do a task which a human is already doing in some sort of manufacturing environment. So it can't be something you've just made up. It's got to be something that's actually out there. And to be able to do it repeatedly again and again and again, and be able to do it for a continuous shift. And then ideally being able to do it at a cost that's commensurate with whatever the wage would be for that particular worker. So what I don't know is how much it actually costs to operate the Digit bot at this point. But it was very clear what they were showing at the Atlanta trade show is they were doing it nonstop. So continuously through a period of, I think, 3.5 days, over 22 hours of work. Of course, just basically one shift spread over those days. And the bots would be swapping off about every hour and a half, while one of them would go into charge and the other one would come out and be able to do the duty. But technically, they were able to make sure they were continuously doing the operation. And now they're looking to be able to go from these pilot programs to getting real development. And so up till now, when we've been looking at the humanoid bots, it's been more or less like technical announcements of what they've been doing, showing sort of achievements of what they've been being able to do with some sort of milestones, different kinds of announcements. Maybe they've talked about a partnership or something. This is a pretty big deal because it's a real, it's a commercial contract they're coming up with that really says that they're going out of this continual kind of R&D phase to really think about how do we deploy this. So the partner that they have with, we can probably talk a little bit about them, Manhattan Associates, and who they are and why that may be a really good fit for Digit and the kind of applications that Digit will be going into.
All right, let's do that. Let's report the news. So we've got here, this is a big announcement. I mean, like I said earlier, right? There's quite a number of firsts that Agility Robotics has. You and I still value and think that TeslaBot Optimus is certainly far ahead in many different aspects. But like I said, the way I set it up was that every bot has something about them that you could say that they're ahead. In terms of Agility and Digit, they are already in pilot with Amazon. They're already in other companies where they're actually doing real useful work. And now this big partnership. So this partnership was a company called Manhattan Associates. They are a massive company, a global leader in supply chain commerce. They provide software that helps factories basically manage their supply chain, what's going in, what's coming out, and how it's being managed. And Peggy Johnson is a brand new CEO of Digit Agility. We'll explain who she is. She said this: Digit is already the world's only bipedal robot currently delivering useful work for customers, increasing productivity and safety while helping workers with difficult and repetitive tasks in warehouse and manufacturing operations. Already first company. What do you think about that, Scott?
Well, I mean, she could be right, because we haven't really seen any other examples except pilots. So, assuming that she knows exactly what they're doing, that we don't know enough about the customers and what they are, but it certainly looks like it could be. And, the thing is a little bit of caution about, Digit. I don't think they're calling Digit a humanoid robot, but it's like of a humanoid form, because the legs are a little bit different. And, it does have arms that are very human-like, a torso. It doesn't have fully formed hands, though they do have some now that will allow them to do grasping of some totes. But a lot of the operations it's designed for is not necessarily for the hands, but more these logistics, being able to move boxes and totes around very easily, which is there's a lot of that goes on. So that is like one of those, you might want to call it a niche market, but it's a really big niche to be able to go into, especially if you can get first mover advantage going in there. And you don't need to over design it or over engineer it. If you don't need hands, and you don't need hands, just go ahead and do something like that. So they seem to be working pretty well in there. And the other thing that's a little bit surprising, she talked about, also doing like some manufacturing. So I wonder what that is and how Agility is doing it, or whether it's just sort of assisting in a manufacturing environment, because you need a kind of a certain amount of supply chain within a factory. There's always stuff that's moving around with the factory. And then there's your traditional logistics, and just like we're moving stuff from point A to point B, and there's a distribution hub, and we've got to move boxes all over the place, bring them off conveyors, put them on there, which is typically what they're doing. And I guess the other thing is, Manhattan Associates is probably like one of those really large companies that you've never heard of, because it's a business to business kind of company. But more than likely, it touches a lot of the products and things that we have every day. We just don't know they're there. There's a lot of companies like that behind the scenes that are just behemoths of moving stuff around, that have all this expertise. And I think when you look at Peggy's pedigree, she's a new CEO, where she's been in the back. I have a feeling she knows a little bit about supply chain and working with some of these companies and who they are. And she probably already had them in her Rolodex, if there's, people have Rolodexes anymore. So she probably already had an association and realized that this would be a really good partnership, because if you can get something like that together, it really legitimizes you as a firm, and also the concept that it could be doing that, because I think it's pretty big. It's sort of saying that they're putting the rubber stamp on this, saying that, what, the humanoid bot is something that we need in our logistics. Yes, those little mobile robots that you see like at Amazon and others, those are very useful within the supply chain and in there. But there's still another role for this other kind of bot in there. And so they seem to be saying that, yes, we've looked at it, and we think it is the right technology for some of the supply chain problems and logistics problems we are trying to solve within this particular scope. So to me, it's an affirmation that everything is moving the right way. And it's not just because it's, some old friends doing a handshake and help me out over here. It's like, no, when they go on these decisions like this, and when they make an announcement, it's because they see that there's going to be benefit, not just for one party, but for both.
So you and I are about to interview Peggy Johnson, the brand new CEO of Agility. She was just hired a month ago. I'll explain her background for Microsoft and others. And then Melanie Wise, who's their Chief Technology Officer. When I spoke to the executives at Agility, what they told me was that they took a different approach in creating this bot. And like you said, it's not, I don't know if I've heard them call it a humanoid. They call it a bipedal robot. Because what they did was they went to the customer site first and said, we want to build from first principles what would be the best form factor to solve pick and place in a factory. And that's why you saw that they ended up going with an opposite kind of knee. And I point this out to people because this is, you've pointed out many times, but if you watch this bot, and I just missed it, but they bent down, and they're able to bend all the way down to pick up that, to go to a low area. That's why they go with that route. So it was designed specifically for that purpose. And then they go that she said that they will then eventually continue to build out the hands, build out the feet, make it more humanoid, but this is why they did it this way. So let's explain more of this partnership and then explain more of who Peggy, the CEO, is. And let's find out more about Manhattan, though. So Manhattan, the partnership with Manhattan will let them streamline adoption of agility solutions into the best practices and bring Digit to more warehouses around the world. This is Agility Robotics. This is Manhattan. It's a juggernaut in the supply chain world. It's another example of Digit's readiness to do valuable work. This is their announcements. Industry first partnerships marks a significant step forward for customers across a wide array of industries looking to integrate multi-purpose bipedal robots like Digit in their existing warehouse workflows. They're making moves. So their partnership allows them to be part of Manhattan Value Partner and the Manhattan Automation Network. So this is a software solution the warehouses uses to automate their supply chain. And they're going to integrate Agility Arc, which is Agility's fleet management software, with Manhattan's active warehouse management software. So they're going to integrate those two softwares together. It's a perfect partnership because now not only will you have distribution to these clients, you're going to have integration with the software solutions that the clients are already using now. Sophisticated AI at the core of adaptability intelligence. Digit is a multi-purpose, human-centric robot for work in logistics and manufacturing operations, starting with bulk material handling use cases. And Agility Arc is agility software to manage the Digit fleets. And we just mentioned earlier that, in a previous show, that Digit was part of a program that's partnership with NVIDIA. So they are using their software. You can explain a little bit more of that. This is Peggy Johnson. So she actually was previously an ex-vice president of business development at Microsoft. She reported directly to Satya Nadella. She was just hired, big gun here, hired by Agility. She came from a CEO of Magic Leap just previous to this. And I think you used the words earlier. She said that she came out swinging. I mean, she just said on day one, in a field cluttered with demoware. All the other robots, she calls them demoware and hype. Agility is different because it stands apart, resolutely, steadily, and remarkably made a human-centric robot that actually works. Any thoughts on her?
Yeah, and again, so they use the term human-centric instead of humanoid because they've been trying to design it to be able to work around human different spaces. And I think, the other thing is that she sees what's going on and she realizes the name of the game is either the bot can do work or it doesn't. It's nice to have R&D projects that go on and do all these demos, but at the end of the day, it should be able to do something useful. And that's what she expects. So she wants to go in there and like from her first day, like again, she put her imprint on the company is that take no prisoners. We're going out there. We're letting people know who we are. We're not in stealth mode anymore. And they want to say, agility starts with A. So they want to say that we're at the top. We're the first ones there. And they clearly want to make a name for themselves. So, they've got a solution and being able to partner with a company like Manhattan, again, it comes down to that before COVID, no one really understood what supply chain was. And then we understood how important it was. And we don't realize it's like how many companies are in the supply chain world, again, that we don't know about. So Manhattan has the big overview. They know what companies need to be able to move things around. They know that there is a lot of human labor that is needed in many places, that everywhere along the supply chain, there's going to be touch points where a human is going to be involved in there. And the question is, can you automate that in some way? And where would be appropriate? So Agility, they have the solution, but they probably don't have the overview of all the companies. They've been working with a few, understanding that market a little bit, but they don't have the customer reference database. And that's basically what Manhattan brings in. And at the same time, they know exactly where these solutions will be appropriate. So their customers will also be able to get value because they want to make sure that their customers get a benefit as well. It's not just that, we want to sell this bot to you, but it better be something that does a return on investment because that's the whole reason that they have these clients. So it's a very good fit, obviously, for being able to do that and help them grow their market. And it's going to be a certain particular niche market. And again, sometimes, whoever has the first comer advantage of getting in there, they might really be able to get a solid foothold and learn quite a bit. That'll be very hard to displace them from that. But remember, the TAM is so big. there's so many different areas of manufacturing and other certain areas that there's no way that agility will be able to scale up to match all that stuff. And they know it. So they're looking at, okay, what can we do? Let's get out there and let's stop relying on venture capital to keep us going, but let's start getting a steady stream of income. So it looks like they're starting to, and to me, it's very exciting because it means it's finally coming into the labs.
That's if it's true, right? So they've made the partnership. Now, we're going to wait and see if these clients actually buy them and use them. Here's an example of one client that Manhattan Associates works with, Skechers, right? So they are the, you know, the running shoes, the, you know, they make these running shoes. And they're talking about how they partner with Manhattan. And so if you look at their factories all over, they're located. So this is where Manhattan and their bots can help. These are the factories themselves, right? So you can see this. And you've already explained, right, that many of these are automated, the factories. This is your previous expertise. You've actually worked with the industrial robots that these factories would install, but they're still humans, right? And then wherever there's a human, that could possibly be replaced. And then in some cases, these digits could replace some of these, especially the pick and place stuff. Like, I mean, this is one human driving around.
Yeah, there's always going to be some places, as much as more and more automation has been added in there. And in some cases, you know, you'll see you have, okay, this automated shrink wrapper there. But, you know, here's a case where you may have like a lot of human activity. You know, sometimes the boxes are being done robotically right now to be able to do the palletizing, and worked on a lot of simulations with companies that actually do that. But sometimes the contents that are going in the boxes may not be done robotically. They may be something where you have a human doing that. So within a lot of these logistics areas, there's still a lot of repetitive tasks that have to be done that have not been automated yet, that this gives the ability to bring in something else to be able to do it. And it seems at this point, this human-centric or this humanoid kind of form factor is what's almost needed to be able to solve a lot of those solutions, especially if it's kind of really a plug and play. Because a lot of times when you automate, you're going in and you're causing a lot of disruption. You're going in and say, we're going to take this whole area here, we're going to tear it up, and we're going to bring this automation system. It takes a while to do it. And meanwhile, you say, well, how do I run the factory at the same time? I mean, it's like road construction, you know, it's like the inconvenience, you got to deal with that. And if you're able to come in and say, all right, tomorrow we're just going to come in with automated solution, it's just going to start working. I mean, that's the dream of being able to do it. And especially if it is as good as a human, and if you get the same cost and is able to run reliably, you know, who wouldn't want to try something like that? So I'm pretty sure there was a lot of due diligence going on here between Manhattan and Agility to make sure there was a pretty good fit, that there's an application to be able to do it. I've seen enough of what Agility's been able to do and demonstrate. I mean, when you go out and do it in a public forum like they did in Atlanta, that means, you know, you're pretty confident what you have. And remember, this is like the second year in a row they've done something like that. So they also improved a lot their design from what they had. From what I saw last year, they had some unique things, and then they changed it up quite a bit. So later on, I was looking at the bot and I was expecting to do something. Like, wait a minute, they got a new shoulder in there. They changed this and that. They got more degrees of freedom. So they've been adding quite a bit, and it looks like they really decided they want to go into commercialization. That's the reason they brought Peggy in, is that, you know, they've now decided this is the time for the transition. And this is what we've been waiting for, right? It's just like, we've been waiting. It's like, when is FSD going to become Robotaxi? I mean, we're still like that. And the same thing with like when Optimus comes, like, when's Optimus actually going to be doing something like that? And we're realizing, well, there's more than just Optimus. There's all these others out there. And when are we going to start seeing it? And so, you know, they may actually be the ones to be able to take the credit for getting the first, you know, significant deployments out there that you're going to be seeing of that. And then, you know, the others are going to follow. So yeah, I'm excited. I mean, just for that, just to see the field moving forward.
Just to be clarified, you and I have talked about this many, many times. There's many different humanoid bot companies out there, including Tesla Bot. They're not competing with each other. There's so many jobs out there. There's so many customers out there. We're talking about, you know, augmenting the $44 trillion labor market, which is the largest industry ever. And so this Agility Robotics decided to focus specifically on a specific use case, pick and place in a warehouse. They don't have hands. I like to compare. I'll show videos of Tesla Bot with Agility, and we'll compare the two. But we're not here trying to say one's better than the other. But something that Agility and Digit has been able to do that a few others have been able to claim, right? So number one, they've made the announcement that they have the that they have this factory, the RoboFab in Portland, Oregon, that will have 10,000 bots. They've announced it. I don't know if they've made progress in this factory, but at least they've announced it. Then you've got this, showcase that they were able to at the conference. This is live in front of all these people at the conference. They were able to watch these bots actually working for 26 hours continuous work over 3.5 days. This is, this isn't just they've accelerated, but this is in a conference, and they show that this companies, these people, these
they were
bots
live
are
streaming,
actually working.
Yeah,
live streaming it.
They were live streaming, and I was jumping in on the live stream, watching it all the time, seeing what they were doing, and seeing their ARC software there to get an idea where it was. And I could see, I was able to track the bots because they had numbers on them and be able to see how long they were there. And like I say, I think they lasted maybe an hour to an hour and a half before they would go in and charge, and the next one would come out from behind the curtain and do everything else. I believe they can go longer than that, but they're saying, like, this is a trade show. You still want to make sure it's going all right, but you can see there is the charging rack in the back. So they had 2 bots continuously working, and 2 others that were either charging or kind of waiting to spell the others, and just nonstop, 30 miles. The carpets were probably worn out by the end of that, of the constant moving around.
This is the point, though, right? This is like literally a month ago, people kept saying to me, they'll argue with me, you will not see a bot do useful work for years. And I'm like, what do you mean? There's already bots today that can do pick and place. Nope, won't happen. Battery issues. They have a lot of concerns about, knowing where to pick and where to place. So then Agility comes out and says, drop the mic. Here you go. Here's a couple bots working 26 hours straight. Now, we asked them the question, and they answered back to us and said that these bots are currently working at 2 to 1, right? 2 hours of work, 1 hour of charging. But that's because of, like you said, they're just trying to stay ahead of the game. But
in this
many
probably
cases,
charging, it probably doesn't even need an hour to charge. I mean, it's the type of thing that I'm sure they can charge faster than that. It's just that in order to have it continuous, just the ratio you needed, they had 2 bots that were kind of doing it. So you could probably set something up that you have like, maybe you always need 2 bots, but you could do it with 3. But in this case, they had 2 different types of bots with different hands. So one bot had hands, the other didn't. And because of that, you really couldn't get, say, that 3 to 1 ratio, or, have 3 bots where 2 were going on there. So it was like just doing 2 and 2, because they were like, just wanted to make sure everything was working right, that they could show that you can have a different style of hand on there. And the other thing, when people think of the humanoid bots, they forget that there are these jobs that are just repetitive, basically doing the same thing again and again and again. And the dexterity requirements and the precision requirements of those tasks is very, very low. We're not talking about watchmaking, okay? We're talking about as simple as taking a tote off and making sure to kind of get it over on a conveyor or drop it off somewhere else. So you don't need a whole lot of precision. You just need to be able to do it again and again and again. And so again, this is a demonstration that they're able to do it. Clearly, this is going to speed up over time. They're going to want to make it a little bit better, but it is so close to being able to do it that they are probably going to be successful in a lot of situations right now to be able to do it. And again, regarding the TAM, they're talking about building 10,000 a year. That's a drop in the bucket, regarding the overall TAM and what's going to be out there, and even the labor market for that. So it's a good business for them for sure, but it's only going to be a small portion of what is a really big pie.
If you have a general purpose humanoid bot that has hands, that has feet, that can walk normal. And so that's what Optimus is able to show, right? This is, this is their Gen 2. You got the hand maneuvers. This will allow it to use a drill and use a hammer that Digit won't be able to use per se. Look at this, be able to pick up an egg. Now, the thing about Tesla Bot is they have the manufacturing capability. They have the actual factories already there. Here's one that's walking through. But it also has the brain, right? This is Tesla's using full self-driving that's already in the cars. They call the cars bots on wheels. And it already can see its environment. It can map its environment. It knows its context and can act. So what Digit has done is they partner with NVIDIA, right?
Yes.
So which is this one? No, hold on. I've lost. Where's my NVIDIA? This is it. So they partner with NVIDIA. So what their strategy is that NVIDIA has partnered with, I think we know 9 humanoid bot companies and other kinds of human scale bot companies. Now, all of these bot companies, they're using NVIDIA, not only their chips, but also their training environment, their simulation environment. There's some of their software, not all of it, right? Here's a simulation. And so this allows the bots, as they each learn, they can share it with each other. So that's kind of how they're, a company like Digit needs to partner with NVIDIA, and maybe even a company like OpenAI eventually. We know Figure is doing that, to really be able to work together, as opposed to Tesla that can do it all in one place.
Yes.
So that's what they're doing. And then here's an example of,
hey, Digit, what's cooking?
And then Digit, and they're going to show you that it's now thinking what it needs to do, right? The tasks. Can you explain what's happening here?
Yes. So again, using a large language model to be able to communicate the task or what it is it's supposed to do. And you can see there's a certain amount of thinking where you can give it a very vague set of commands and it breaks it down on what could you actually mean by it. And so we could see the decision tree of how it was going through, and then going ahead and turning that request into actual actions, the different movements that are going on. So it knows, okay, what does it have to do step by step as far as being able to go over to the oven, make sure the oven is open, go in there, grab the tray out of there, bring it over and put it on the table. So being able to describe this is something we've seen, not just Agility be able to do, but many other bots that are integrating in these large language models. The idea is to be able to take, right now you can take input text to create output text. And of course, it's not that hard to take input words that you just say that gets converted to text that can create output text. And what Jensen has talked about is like, there's no reason why you couldn't, instead of just creating output text, create output actions. And this is what we're beginning to see, is that you can go ahead and give very vague instructions, because through the fact the large language model understands speech very well, language very well, also cultural references, that you are able to give the instruction, say, do this, turns into actions. They're all doing that, and partnering with NVIDIA makes it a lot easier because they do not have to reinvent the wheel. They can use a lot of the tools that NVIDIA has already built. NVIDIA has gone, let's say, the extra miles, not just that they're selling the chips anymore, but they're also built out the software to do the simulations and their Isaac operating system, so that a lot of these vendors can come in and start leveraging that. So the way to look at Isaac is very much like Android. So the idea of, if you're going to build cell phones, you also need to have an operating system to go with it. And what is your expertise? Do you have hardware expertise? You know how to build cell phones, and now you have to go ahead and build the operating system for your cell phone, or is it a lot easier to get one off the shelf, especially if it's one that is very popular, and the more people that are using it, the better that operating system becomes, which is sort of the theory behind Android. Same thing with Isaac. So having a lot of these smaller players come in suddenly means you've got something that's very large, and NVIDIA will put the time, the resources in it. They're going to learn a lot about it. And that definitely gives them a leverage and gives them an advantage that, without that, I think a lot of these bot companies wouldn't stand a chance. I mean, it would be very hard, but this allows them to actually have a possibility to come up with a product that will be successful in some niches, and that they should be able to survive. Whether they then become this behemoth later on, that's something else. And in many cases, probably to get that, you may need to have like other tricks up your sleeve. But at this point, I think they've got access through NVIDIA, which will help them do quite a bit to be able to make sure the bot is functional and useful for the task that they want. And now they've got this partner, they also have someone else that sort of believes that there's an application space, and they can start finding it. Because once you start getting lots of success stories, then that starts creating more success stories. And that just becomes this nice kind of virtual circle that just allows you to be able to grow and grow. Of course, right now, they're not thinking of building 10,000 bots this year. They have the floor space that will allow them to do that eventually. It'll be a few years before they get up to that. And of course, to do that, you need customers.
Well, you probably still need to prove that it can actually do useful work. And you did a great job in your post on X, where you described exactly what useful work is. but in essence, it's got to be equivalent to a human, right? Like
Yep.
it's got to be able to charge. It's got to be cheaper. It got to move as fast. Maybe not. I mean, if it can work 3 shifts versus 1 shift, maybe it doesn't have to move as fast as one human quite yet. But ideally,
But it has to keep
works.
up with the attack rate. So
Yeah.
Unless like the whole factory is made up, let's say you've got a factory that's just running 1 shift for some reason, but you get humans in there and you want to run at a certain speed to get the most out of it for that. And then you said, well, we're going to go 2, but everyone can work a little bit slower because we don't really need a double production. We want to make sure we get the same production for that. But you don't want to be paying lots of workers to work slower unless their bots are slower. So it's got to be as fast as a human. The only way you could do it is if for some reason you can have 2 of them work in the same area, because sometimes you'll have a human worker which is responsible for 2 tasks within a certain cycle. Maybe you can put 2 of them there to do that. The other thing, of course, is it's going to be challenging to make sure you can have the charge to make it through a whole shift. That's there. None of them are going to be able to go 8 hours straight, except in very rare circumstances when they're doing very low power kind of applications that they might be able to do it. So how are they going to manage that? Well, there's a couple of ways. One is, well, humans take breaks too. There's a couple of breaks during the day that are spaced a couple hours apart. So if you make it a couple of hours, you might be able to get that boost charge that allows you to kind of make it to the next break and then the next break and the one after that. The other is you can have a fleet of these bots and then you start swapping them around. So that's what they were showing at the trade fair is that, well, what we have is actually get 2 that, well, one of them is working, the other one's charging. But if your charging rate's pretty fast, maybe you don't do 2 bots, 1 charging, 1 on. Maybe you actually have 2 working and 1, and they kind of swap around. So you may do that. And that's going to be important because, as we say, the cost is what's important here. Is that just because it can do the job, if it can't do it at the same speed, it's not useful work yet. I mean, my definition of useful work is like not just that it does the job, but does it at the same speed or fast enough to keep up with the line. And it has to be able to do it through a whole shift. So it's not like, oh, I do it for a half hour and wait for me to come back an hour later. And it has to do it at cost. So we've got to remember, if you have to hire 2 of them to do the job of 1 and they cost the same as the minimum wage, you've already lost.
You'll do it. Well, yes and no, right? So, I mean, obviously here, this is a real time. It doesn't look like it's moving too slow. Obviously it's slower than a human, but it's not terrible. And then, like you said, in the actual trade show, they actually showed, that these bots, like they just swapped them out. So this is 26 hours, 3 full days, continuous work. And they just swapped them out and you just had 1 extra bot to do 2 people's jobs. Of course, this is sped up, so we don't know how slow they really were working. But so let's explore this a little bit further, right? So this is the table that Cernbasher, you and I have created. And this is our list of all these different bot companies. And this is not based on, we didn't prioritize this. We're not saying that the one at the top is the leader per se, but what we're doing is trying to say, okay, has this bot company, are they for commercial focus? Are they walking? Are they shown hands or some sort of version of hands? And so we call Digit having no hands, but have they demoed useful work? So now we can call that a brighter green here. Can you use LLM and voice integration? Have they shown autonomous work? They've done that as well. Have they announced pilots? And we know that Agility has. And now we might actually put Agility here at some point with deploying robots. This is a partnership. We don't know yet if this is actually complete, but this is why it's a big news. Now, we know that there's pilotships with Figure and BMW. Agility themselves announced a partnership with Mercedes. That's announced, but it's a question of, are you
you mean Apptronics, I think, was with Mercedes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Made a mistake. Apptronic made the announcement. We got to fill this out. This is I think I've got an older version that I'm showing here. So this is why this is such a big deal. If Agility Robotics can actually start showing that they're selling it and customers are buying it. So this partnership with Manhattan, this sounds like that's where they're headed. We'll follow them closely and we'll see if that's the case. So, Scott Walter and I and Cernbasher and John Gibbs, we formed a company called Human Bots. So if you're a business and you want to explore and understand, can humanoid bots or other kinds of bots improve your business productivity, give us a call. We can give you a business case. We're also creating software that helps companies do mixed world bot fleet management as well. So I get to take advantage of the brains that we have here with Dr. Scott Walter and his experience. So this is why this is a big news, right? So Scott, tell me, just summarize what you think, how big and important is this and what are you looking forward to?
I think what's important is it shows that the industry as a whole is moving forward. So we had sort of a similar announcement coming from Sanctuary the other day with Accenture. So they're partnering with a big company, with Apptronics going over and working at Mercedes, Figure having something with BMW. I keep on saying it. It's like what this does is like the stigma of humanoid bot. The idea of using that is it's over, and everyone's getting very serious about it. So it's yet one more, and it's nice to see that another one's getting an announcement that no one's being, let's say, left at the altar or something like that. They're all finding some sort of partnerships, which again legitimizes the whole thing. And again, this TAM we talk about is just so huge. There's so many different niches, and it probably makes more sense for Manhattan to work with Agility because it might be the right kind of bot for the solutions they're looking for within their unique kind of supply chain. And there may be others where they say it's not quite the right bot for us because we're looking for something to be something else. So I'm happy for both of them. They've really been able to find something which is right. We've also heard, Sanctuary has been doing something with Accenture to see that the others are also finding, pilots they can go into. And I'm sure there's going to be other kind of collaborations that'll be going on that we'll be hearing in the coming months from all of them. I mean, it just seems like that's going. And this is, let's say, more important than funding. And the reason I say that is that a lot of times they'll say, well, the funding's all very nice, but that was probably just a lot of FOMO, the people looking at what's out in the future. And what's happened here is like, it's a form of funding in that it's going to be generating cash flow for them, but it's also really getting more to deployment and showing us like, we are really serious about it. We're not talking about the future anymore. We're talking about the present day and that we're getting ready to do it. So I think it's very important. There's no doubt about it. Just like, it's in this whole year, we're just going to be seeing more and more of these milestones.
You and I'm laughing, right? Because it's like the beginning of April. And ever since January, you kept saying, it's only the second week of January. Look at all these news. It's only the first month of the 2024. Look at these news. And I'm laughing because literally just 2 months ago, people were saying, we'll not see humanoid bots doing useful work in a factory until 2 years, 5 years from now. And here we are 2 months later.
yeah, we're seeing it. We're gonna see it. And it's always a question of like when it's so obvious. It's going to be a couple of years before people like really notice us like that they're out there. For the most part, they're just going to be reading about it. But it means it's happening. It means it's really starting to happen, and it's going to ramp up. And yeah, it's the beginning of the future. So we're here. It's arrived.
Thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate this. Another big breaking news, big partnership. They are the first to come out and say that we're going to actually be using useful work in multiple factories now, not just that one beta partners. We'll see. We'll follow how real this becomes, but they're building a factory. We'll hear more about that. And we're going to do the interview with the CEO and CTO of Agility, and we're going to ask them some more of these questions. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.